Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we are getting really close to finishing this book. We are reading The Bands of Mourning, chapters 28 and 29, wherein Wax is dead and has a conversation with God, and then Marisi gets superpowers and helps make Wax not so dead. We get a showdown between Wax and his uncle, and sort of a showdown between Wayne and Wax's sister, which is also interesting, and a bit of a war on the ground between the factions of people, although we don't really see all that much of that. Anyway, I'm Data, and with me is
Jamie,
Joe, and Dak.
Yeah, we got everybody back again. Woohoo!
Yay!
Just in time to finish this one up, this episode and the next one. So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Revolution holds us bound. Come on down to London town. Break your back for class and crown. Come on down to London town. Steam train running on a restless rail. Speeding right into the rising gale. Shovel harder 'cause we're on your tail. London's bloody cry.
So yeah, we got 2 chapters here, which is going to leave us with just 2 and an epilogue for next time, and we're really closing in, and these should be coming out right before the new book releases, so it'll be interesting timing for everyone involved. We're going to have to discuss what we're going to do next, but in the meantime, what did you guys think of these 2 chapters?
Good continuation from where we were. I'm so bummed that I missed our last episode because I was so excited about it in the episode prior to talk about that stunning conclusion of Wax being dead. I definitely went into these not expecting Wax to actually be dead, so it was good to sort of see, I guess, everyone come back. I'd kind of forgotten that Melan was returned to blob form, and so it was nice to see her be able to come back as well. Yeah, cool. On the money with the spearhead. I think that was maybe Joe's prediction back in the day. It was fun to see the interactions with Suit again, still like just getting more and more climactic every time. Also, Wayne's moment, like, gosh, how much Wax's death affected him to actually then be able to shoot Elson was. I didn't sort of see that coming, but it makes a lot of sense because it's, Wayne, Wax is the most important person really to Wayne. So yeah, but good. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all wraps up now.
Yeah, I like what you said about Wayne, because I agree. It's you don't necessarily expect it because Wayne's not really a serious emotions kind of guy usually. But once he has this like really severe reaction, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't think he knows yet. So what else has he got in him before we get there? But I like that he's like gone and sorted his stuff out. He's like, right, you got my friend. Boom, you're gone. Great. Now I can go get my other friend back. Like he's on a mission.
Yeah, and I remember reading that the first time, being like, what other friend are you talking? Like, I wasn't thinking about, and I don't even know if we knew that she had Melan's spikes. Maybe we did, and I'm not remembering. But I was like, what do you mean?
I don't know that we knew she had them, but I feel like, and I'd have to go back because it has been quite a while now, but I feel like we did read something about the spikes being pulled out. Like it was all pretty stunning how fast it all turned around. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it definitely mentions that she takes the spikes.
We talked about that briefly in that episode because it's kind of gross the way it described, like she's like ripping into her and ripping the spikes out. But I guess it just didn't occur to me that like she just still has them in her pocket or whatever.
Yeah, they might be useful. I got to say too, so I both read this, but I listened to these chapters as well. And the voice for Suit almost comes across as like Bane. Dak, there's a cartoon that you've been watching, but it's like that silly Bane voice.
Oh, the Harley Quinn Bane?
The Harley Quinn Bane, yeah.
Oh my god.
And that's all I can hear now when I hear Suit.
Oh, that is not the impression of Suit I ever would have gotten. Huh. Is this your card? No. Fuck.
It's pretty much that voice. It's very well done. I think Michael Kramer's done a really good job, but of getting all the voices and if you weren't reading along at the same time, being able to tell them all apart. I think he's done a really good job. But it was hilarious because that's all I can hear now.
I'm gonna need to listen to that now.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
now I have to listen to that because I love Bane in Harley. Harley Quinn is just an excellent show. I love it.
It's okay, but like Bane, honestly, Bane's the main reason I watch it because he's the best character in that show.
This podcast not sponsored by Warner Brothers.
The streets will run with.
I think not even Warner Brothers is sponsored by Warner Brothers anymore.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
Bane wants to see them do a sequel to Up. I remember that. That was so funny.
classic.
But yeah, now I have to listen to this. I've never, I've talked about before, I can't do audiobooks, so I've never really listened to any of the, even though people always talk about how awesome Michael Kramer is in those.
I do find like I zone out a little bit, but sometimes there's a necessity for the time frame to have to have listened to it rather than just sit and read it, because then I can do other things. But I still prefer reading a book, but it is done very well.
Yeah, these chapters were good. Obviously, Wax does come back by some crazy magic, which is what Dak and I kind of talked about in the last episode. And so that wasn't a huge surprise because, these are the Wax and Wayne books. I will say that I really did enjoy. I felt like, again, I feel like all these beats in this story are pretty earned. That's been some of my problems with maybe some of the other books, is that some of the stuff doesn't feel earned or it feels a little bit more abrupt. But I think because of the brevity of these books in general, the beats come out at a better kind of a better pace. So I will say that I enjoyed each of these things. Wayne, even Wayne killing Telson kind of off page is not super unearned to me. It didn't feel too abrupt, or it didn't feel like that wasn't a good ending. And it said he shot her in the face. We don't know that she's actually dead because she can heal. So she may not be dead at all. But yeah, I enjoyed each of these sections, the two chapters that we read. I liked the Wax and the Edward stuff. I feel like all the characters were really utilized, obviously, except for Melan, who was still a goof for most of the chapters. But yeah, Steris has her moment, Marisai has her moments, and Alec has his moments. So it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it is nice to have everybody getting a little something to do in the finale, other than, like you said, Melan, who even I guess without like stuff to do, she has a really interesting moment where we get the perspective of her as a Mistwraith.
I actually thought that was really cool.
That.
We haven't had that before. Yeah, I thought that was really nice to get that, but also like how awful to go from being a goo blob to then being sentient to then being returned to a goo blob to be like, what's happening? I have no memories. I don't know what I'm doing, but this isn't right. Something's not right. Like, wow.
Yeah, it sounds horrifying. Like that's like nightmare fuel right there, where it's like you lose all sentience and memory, and you just something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought these chapters were really cool. Yeah, no, like I agree with Joe. I think the fact that everyone got their moment, and it seemed like for a lot of them they were built up like in relatively subtle and effective ways. Like Steris had a whole, look, I'm not particularly useful, but that doesn't mean I'm useless. And then just like pulls out the medallion. I thought that was a really cool moment. I really liked Marisai like having the power and just going, you know what, this isn't me, and like getting more comfortable with who she is and what she's there to do. I thought that was really nice as well. Wayne just executing Telson was brutal. I did think it's like, oh, we really only just got Telson, who's supposedly even higher up than Suit in this hierarchy. And it's like you think, well, maybe they could bump off Suit in this one, but we've got the villain set up for the next book. Nope, she's dead. Oh, okay. But the moment itself with her and Wayne was really cool, so I thought that was great. The only thing I sort of had with these chapters is like Suit really took a bit of a backslide into mustache twirling, cackling villain territory here. It's like, you see, I've made myself a leecher. I can get rid of your powers. like this doesn't seem like the crafty bastard we've been dealing with for so long, but I guess he's always hammed it up a bit, so that could just be me misremembering.
So you really need to listen to the audiobook then, Jack.
Yeah, I guess I do. I need to hear this Bane Suit. But it was cool. I loved the conversation with Harmony and how he justified what he did and everything with Wax, and so like that all played out really well. Yeah, honestly, just like a really satisfying pair of chapters. I felt like a lot of stuff that we've sort of been waiting for has paid off really well. Plot threads are tying up really nicely. Some new perspectives, which was interesting. Like you already mentioned, like the blob monster of Melan. We also saw like a bit from Suit's perspective, which I didn't see coming at all, and from Alex Captain, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Oh yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about that when the captain gets her own little moment too. Yeah. The suit
And
one is probably the one that I found. I guess after Melan's the one that I found most interesting because he's always been this like very sort of distant figure, and you're not sure what's going on in his head. And now that you see it, it's like these wheels turning, sort of like he's constantly planning, sort of thing.
yeah, which fits what we know of him. So it was kind of cool to see it happening. He's always like, all right, well, Telson might be screwed, so hey, maybe I can be sequenced now. Opportunistic bastard.
Very loving uncle. It's like, yeah, I guess she might be dead. Whatever, good for me.
I mean, she
Yeah, it
recruited him
doesn't
in the
sound-
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like she was kind of the worst of the two almost in some aspects. Like he's calculating, but she seems kind of brutal. And so he may not have been super thrilled with her in general.
According to him, he has tried many times to avoid killing Wax throughout the years since Wax came back to the city. Telson does not seem to have a problem with shooting her brother in the neck, so maybe that supports this. Okay, so something that came up in everybody's kind of thing. So I usually would save this for predictions, but I'm curious now. Do we think that Telson is dead?
I think it would be more interesting if she wasn't, because I feel like Wayne's the kind of guy that even though he wants to shoot her, it's because he knows she'll heal. So he's just doing it to get his own kind of emotions out, and after that, he can, like Wax, I think he's the lawman in as much as he's not going to kill somebody if he can avoid it. But maybe I'm wrong.
Would it make it easier for Wayne to hold and shoot a gun if he knew that it wasn't going to be fatal?
I don't know. I think he makes the decision to hold the gun before he makes the decision on who he's going to kill, or shoot at. So you never know.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I was like, wow, this is a big thing for Wayne to have to kill her. But given her abilities, maybe he did consider it. And I mean, even if we never see Telson again in this book and assume she's dead, there's a nice explanation for her to come back as another villain.
That's true. Yeah, it might be that we don't find out one way or another, and then it'll be a quote unquote surprise if she pops back up in the next one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I forgot she could heal.
Well, that was also one of my questions. I'm trying to remember. Do we know if she can heal? I know that there was somebody assumed, and maybe it was Joe in the last episode, that the two of them had given themselves the same set of powers, and I don't know if we know that for a fact.
Yeah, if we don't know that for a fact, I don't think. But my thinking was, of all the powers, why would you not want the healing one?
That is what I would pick, probably. Absolutely. Okay. Interesting if true. Let's get into these two chapters. So we start with a Wayne perspective of Wax's death, and Wayne, it says he just wanted to sit there and stare at nothing, like those fellows in rows nearby, all the priests that were dead down here. I'd kind of forgotten they were there after the big cave-in and whatnot. Like Wax is the only one who'd ever forgiven him or believed in him. And then he thinks, and he left me, that bastard.
I did have a moment, just like the only one who forgave me. It's like, you keep doing things that need to be forgiven, dude.
I think he probably means, the big mistake that he's made.
I know. But yeah, I've been on that train long enough. Everyone knows how that goes.
There's actually, I think the one email that I was going to read today is like defending Wayne. So when we get there, we can discuss this. And so he drops his canes, or he had dropped his canes rather, and he reaches down and pulls the shotgun out of where Wax keeps it in a holster on his leg, and his hands start shaking. He's like, "No, we're not doing that anymore." And then he goes to shotgun someone we know not who at this point. And honestly, he probably isn't sure who he's going to be fighting when he gets out there, because he doesn't know about what's going to go down.
I guess it's really the first person who makes him angry that he comes across.
Right. And then we turn to Marisai, who is going through sort of the same thought process Wax went through in the last section, Where it's like, okay, no, all that stuff in the temple, it was fake. Where would you put this weapon? Like, the Lord Ruler would know what he looks like, what the weapon looked like when he came back. He's the one who made it. We think of it like bracers, but it didn't have to be bracers. It could be anything. And she basically puts it together that you make all the other people think that they're either the place has already been robbed after they make it through all the traps, or if they make it all the way down, they find the fake and they think that they've successfully robbed the place. But the Sovereign, like, you put it right on the doorstep under the sign of the Sovereign himself in his own hands. And that's when she looks closely at the spearhead and sees that it is not aluminum. It's a bunch of different metals woven together.
Yeah, fucking called it.
Yep, there you go. Dak, as soon as it popped up, Dak was like, that's it. It's that. He was looking for it the whole book practically, though. He's like, there's going to be something. I think it would have been funny if that was wrong, too. And it turns out it was something else altogether.
Turns out it was actually the shotgun.
But the thing is, like she says, or she thinks here, it's like, you can't use the power unless you, like, know that it's there, basically. Like, unless you know to try, just holding the thing is not going to let you know that it has this power. So it totally could be something random, like that nobody ever thought of it as possibly a metal mind or whatever before, so nobody ever knew.
But also, you can't act on it, or they could act on it, because they were looking for sources of metal. Did they just think it was just a chunk of metal, or they really thought it was aluminium? Because it's 16 metals woven together, but all those metals you can push and pull, and it's just got extra magic power because it's such a special magic object. I don't understand how that works.
We established in the last book, I think, when Wax, like, they have the crazy guy and he walks in and all he does is like push on the metal mines that are laying on the table. He's like, those aren't really metal mines. And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, like something with like a metal mine that has power in it is harder to push for some reason. And so we established back then that it's like when something is infused with power, that the abilities can't affect it as much. And so this has so much power that he couldn't even like tell that it
like
was
aluminium. Right. But Vin could remove the braces because the braces weren't really the metal mines.
That's a whole different question. Is like, but wait, back in the day, Vin pulls the bracers off of the Lord Ruler, so of course she was also like
powerful.
Yeah.
She got extra power from Harmony, right?
Well, no, I mean Harmony wasn't around then, but she
no, the mists.
Yeah, she was drawing in
the
mists.
Preservation's what I meant, not Harmony.
Half of Harmony.
Maybe that's the only explanation, is that she drew in so much mist juice that she was able to do it. I don't know. But so yeah, we cut to Wax, who is getting, I think somebody was talking about it last time, is like a King's Cross sort of thing from Harry Potter, which it basically kind of is. And God just shows up. Sazed / Harmony is like, hey, what's up? How's it going? He has a cloak trailing behind him of timelessness, which, like, kind of the description of that is neat. And he has the Terrace V pattern robes, but the V's are like strata of time.
I like he was still wearing the robes.
Right? Yeah. And Wax says, which I don't think, like, we talked about whether or not Harmony was still doing this, because this is what preservation used to do. Wax is like, they say that you come to all people when they die. So I guess that's a yes, he is still doing that. And he says, Harmony says that it is among his most sacred duties, or what he considers his most sacred duties. Even with other matters pressing, I find time to take this walk. And he tells Wax that, yeah, you're dead. Your body, mind, and soul have separated. One will return to the earth, another to the Cosmere, and the third, even I do not know. That's interesting. He still hasn't figured out whatever is beyond for souls, I guess. Which we know back at the end of the first trilogy, he's like, yeah, Ellen and Vin are dead, and I'll figure out how to put them back in their bodies at some point, but for now I'll let them rest. And then we find out in Secret History that they just kind of like disappear off into the distance or whatever. So I don't know that he's going to figure out how to put them back. And he and Wax get into a discussion about like, why don't you do more, God? Prevent children from being killed. Make sure constables arrive on time to stop deaths and stuff. And I don't know, I feel like this is a staple of fantasy fiction, at least, that it's just like, if you get to talk to God, then you're like, hey, why don't you do more stuff, God? And God's like, well, I mean, I could, but in the long run, like, that's not the best way to do things.
Yep.
I mean, we even see it in that episode of Futurama.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
You're this.
If you do it just right, They won't be sure you've done anything at all.
Are you the remains of God that a satellite collided with? That seems probable.
Probable.
And so Say's is basically like, I can't stop all bad things without basically taking away free will. And even if I did stop all bad things from ever happening to people would still be mad at me because like, oh, why am I not as rich as Steve next door?
It's true. Damn, Steve.
And Wax is just like, no. Don't give me this crap. You're God. You can figure out where to draw the line to prevent the worst of the stuff and still let us lead our own lives. And Say's is like, yeah. Maybe I already did that. You don't see the worst because it never gets to you. And he shows him this an image of the planet with a haze of red pressing in on the world and a strip of light like a bubble around the world stopping it. And Wax is like, what's that? And he says a representation, a crude one perhaps. So something is out there trying to get at this planet and Harmony is trying to stop it. I guess like Trell? ?
Well, it's red, and Miles said the colors of Trell were like red and gold.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yeah.
And so then Wax is like, no, this isn't even about that. You let her die. You let me kill her. And he really puts it to him in this way that it never even occurred to me, basically, where like Wax is mad because Harmony basically tricked him into killing Lessie. And he's like, well, I mean, would you have wanted someone else to do it? And Wax says no. He's like, okay, but would you have wanted her to live on like a slave in her own mind, corrupted by that cursed spike that would forever leave her scarred, even if replaced? So that's new information. It's like, even if we'd taken the spike out and put another one in, it had done permanent damage to her. And Wax is like, no, I would not have wanted that either. And he's like, okay, but what if you knew that you wouldn't be able to do what you needed to do unless you didn't know? What would you have asked me to do? And Wax is like, no, I don't tell me. I don't want to know. And Harmony's like, I'm sorry for your pain, for what you did, for what we had to do, but I'm not sorry for making you do what had to be done. And so he's just like, look, when I don't protect everyone, I have to trust that that the people are doing what they can do on their own, and because I have other problems to occupy me. And Wax is like, you didn't tell me what it was. And Say says, that's because I don't know. And Wax says, that frightens me. And he says, like, yeah, it should. Which, okay, yeah, that's a problem. When God doesn't know, and then below on the planet, there's like a flicker, a spark. And when Wax says, what's that? Harmony says, trust. So he trusted that Marasai was going to handle things, and Marasai does handle things. I mean, he said that he put her in place to do some good, and that's exactly what's happening. And so she taps into everything, it says. And I love that one of the first things she does is she uses the physical speed, and she moves so fast she can see a pocket of vacuum left behind. I can talk. She slows her speed when she realizes how fast she's using up the speed, and then everyone around them holds their ears. She's not sure why. And so she shoves all the guards out of the way, and she's able to shove Soot and Telzin by using the spikes that they have pierced themselves with. And so I guess that this after this moment is when the two of them start running, because we later come upon Soot and Telzin separately, like escaping on their own through the snow. They're like, okay, the bands of mourning are in play. We're screwed. We're out of here. And she's so powerful that there's mist coming out of her, which that seems like it might not be a good thing. I don't know.
It seems like, yeah, an excessive amount of power here. I guess we kind of saw it with Vin.
I feel like
I don't know if
with
mist
Vin
was
it was
coming
the
out
other
of
way.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of enveloping her, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it seems bad when you start smoking, is all I'm saying. And so yeah, she has all of this power. She feels like she can do anything, and then, as someone mentioned, she realizes like this isn't what I want. Like, this isn't me. And that's when she decides what she's gonna do. And then I love Steris's moment of watching her sister fly away, and she's like, huh, unexpected. It's like Marasai starting to glow, throwing people around with allomancy, and then streaking away, leaving a trail of mist, was not on my list of things that might happen. It didn't even make the appendix.
She's just watching this all happen. She goes, well, that's new.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, all of my planning, and I never came up with this. Huh.
Maybe one of my favorite Steris quotes is her follow-up, where she's just like, she sees all this, she's like, that's really unexpected, and she's like, huh, I shall have to enlarge my projections of what is plausible during activities such as this, don't you think? It's just so perfect. She's not freaking out. She's just like, I guess I'll have to reevaluate how I'm doing this. And then we get her thing where it's an interesting, because when she gives herself 7 out of 100 in that earlier discussion, it's just like, oh, why are you giving yourself such a low number? But I don't know that anyone asked what has she done that she gives herself 7 instead of 0? Which we could have come up with answers. I mean, she's throwing up on cue, which I feel like is worth more than 7 by itself.
Sure.
But she's like, I couldn't give myself 0 because I do have some uses, and she's hidden one of the medallions in her notebook, which is something that's really planted in the story well if you reread it. And it's such a small detail that I was just like, he went to a lot of trouble to foreshadow this, because when they're sitting in the skimmer way back when, Wayne sees her like messing with her notebook, and he's like, what's she like making notes about or whatever? And then later on, I think Marisi notes that she's writing on like the back of her notebook instead of one of the pages, and she's like, what, did she fill up that whole notebook? Why is she writing on that? And so it's just it's foreshadowed so well that I'm like, why was there such a need to like significantly foreshadow this? I don't feel like it's that big a story point, but it is a nice moment.
Yeah, that's why. Because it's a nice moment for Steris. We're rooting for her.
It's a moment for her, but it's also a moment for Alec and his people. This is the thing that gets them back on track.
That's true. Okay, then we cut back to Wax and Harmony. And Wax is like, so I just fade off into nothing? And he's like, I don't think it's nothing. There's something out there. But maybe that's just my own desires talking. Maybe I just wanted there to be something. And Wax is like, that's not incorrect. Aren't you omnipotent? It's like, no, but I believe that parts of me could be. And Wax says that doesn't make any sense, which, yeah, I get you, Wax. It doesn't make any sense. And Harmony says it won't until I make it do so, which also doesn't make any sense. And Harmony gives him 2 choices. Pick a hand. Pick one of the pills, red or blue pill. In the right hand is freedom, and in the left hand is something else.
In the right hand, ride a corpse boat into the sunset.
I mean, yeah, that sounds fun.
Corpse Boat, great band name.
I'm pretty sure we've yeah, okay. That's
I've already made that joke, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, there's a page I follow on Instagram. Like, some guy has picked up like one of the right-wing sensationalist newspapers like of the country, and he takes like a few choice words from their sensationalist headlines and makes them into album covers. It's the coolest thing ever. It's really funny.
That's some creativity. I like that. But okay, so from this hand he hears a female voice being like, Wax, this will heal you. Come on. And he says, that hand is duty, isn't it? And Harmony's like, no. You've always seen it like that. Duty versus freedom, burden versus adventure. And you always made the quote-unquote right choice while everybody else played. And so you resent it. And Wax is like, no, I don't. And Harmony just looks at him. It says the understanding in his face was infuriating. It's like, God knows you, dude. It's fine. And he says, this hand is not duty. It's a different adventure. And when he reaches for that hand, Harmony pulls it away. And he's like, are you sure? And Wax says, yes, I'm sure. I have to. It's who I am. He says, then maybe you should stop hating that, my son. Which, here we go. Everyone is getting some character growth here. Marisi gets character growth with her decision and how comfortable she is with what she's chosen later. Wayne gets some character growth in, coming to a decision, holding a gun, shooting some guy.
Yeah, it's like, Batman grabbed a gun.
Yeah, exactly. And Wax has a personal discussion with God where God's like, dude, you need to be less harsh on yourself. Accept who you are, basically. And before Wax goes, he wants to know, did she come here to this place when she passed? And Harmony says, she asked me to look after you. So that's very sweet.
Oh, heartbreaking.
Mm.
And so it is Marisi who has brought Wax the Bands of Mourning. I feel like it's weird to call it the Bands of Mourning when it's like one single big chunk of metal, but whatever.
The stabbing thing of mourning.
Big dull spearhead of mourning. Yep. And so Wax is healing himself, and he's able to throw a rock off of him with the power of steel because he's so powerful. And it says he's feeling so much raw power he could level cities or build them up anew. And so she gives him some medals, and he's like, but you could have done this yourself. And she's like, no, I couldn't have. It isn't me. Does that make sense? And he says, surprisingly, yes. Maybe because of that conversation he just had with Harmony about kind of being true to yourself.
Sure.
And she says, do what you do best. And he's, what's that? Break things? Break things with style.
Falling with style.
And that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter, we start with Suit's perspective, which, like I said, this is one of my favorites. And he is practicing, like, okay, first it's like, oh, Waxilium's followers have the bands. And he's like stumbling through the icy snow. And it's like, oh, this is a crisis. We have to change our timetables. They're coming for us. And so you think it sounds like he's panicking, but in reality, he's practicing his pitch to the other members of the set to decide exactly what approach to take to make them do what he wants them to do. Which, yes, does feel very much him. He's got like this mastermind thing happening. And so apparently it says that he says even the most careful of the series would be distressed by the prospect of being technologically outmaneuvered. So I guess the series is, I don't know if that's a rank that's just like this. Is that the rank in charge, or is the series like the council of dudes in charge, or I don't know.
Yeah, sounds like the council to me, because all of these things could be considered series of things.
So then what was the set? Is that just the collective,
Yeah,
the whole group?
The whole
And
group,
and the series is the council of the set? Or
Who knows?
Their naming scheme in a way makes sense, and in another way is like completely confusing.
It made sense, but in a much more real way, it made no sense.
Well, so yes, he's like, everything has gone wrong here today, but I'll figure out a way to find an advantage in this, which is very admirable of him. I feel like that's like a Batman sort of thing, where it's like, I'm gonna take what I can get and make it work for me. So he comes up to his soldiers who are guarding like the big ship, the one that they found up here that still works. And the soldier asks for orders, and he says, if anyone other than the sequence drops from the sky or approaches your position, you shoot them and you keep shooting. And so he's just like, look, they have the bands, sure, but the bands only work for one guy. If we can make a bunch of these airships, then we can deify an entire army, basically. Which I feel like you're not taking into account the fact that there's another nation out there that already has these and has for a long time, but whatever. And so they've got the ship operational. They give him one of the weight-reducing medallions so that they can fly. They've got the fans unclogged, and apparently you prime. So the entire ship has weight-changing machinery that someone named Fed is priming with her feruchemy to make the ship itself lighter. Which I guess that makes sense. We didn't necessarily see that in the little skimmer that we saw flying earlier, but maybe just that like that's a small enough, light enough ship to push up on its own. A bigger ship would be harder.
You'd think so. It would need a bit of extra help.
But yeah, I do wonder about how the ship changing its weight affects things. Like, that's kind of interesting to me. And so he's like, okay, we're getting out of here. And they're like, wait, aren't we going to wait for the sequence? The boss of this expedition? And he's like, oh yeah, where did she go? And then he thinks, maybe this is another one of those things I can make an advantage. I could stand being sequenced. So he tells them, like, yeah, she'll join us if she can. Whatever. We got to get out of here. And he does have one point in that he's just like, airships could change everything. Travel, shipping, warfare, new types of buildings, new docks for airships will need to be built, and I could be in charge of it all. The set had been planning for events a century or more away, putting careful plots in motion at his suggestion. He was proud of those, but truth be told, he'd rather they rule in his lifetime. Which, yeah, I could see that.
Sure. It's like, all this stuff in the future is good, but what about me?
So
he's like, I put in the work. I want some of the credit.
Yeah. These possum hunters are taking all the credit for my good ideas.
But Jamie, you missed last time when we found out that they had like ferrochemical spikes. I was kind of like, it worries me that we might be seeing what happened to those women who were kidnapped from the first book that Jamie has talked about several times. Like, hey, what has happened to them?
Yeah.
But this indicates that maybe Wax's original thought was right, that they're trying to like breed an army, and that's what he's talking about, like events 100 years from now is what we're planning for. So maybe they're still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, they got enough women. It could be both.
Also true. Then again, they have a bunch of allomancers and ferrochemists working for them already, apparently. So I'm like, couldn't you just like try to do your breeding stuff with people that you're hiring and not people you kidnapped? But maybe it's both. And then we get the captain's perspective. Her name is Jordis, apparently. Interesting name. And they're all freezing to death. And finally the engine master, who's in her 6th decade, it says, which I guess is old, is pretty old for this group. She says, how the woman survived this long. She's the oldest of the crew. And the engine master, Petron, is like, maybe we should just attack. And then we can, like, die from their weapons instead of from the cold. And the captain's like, actually, that's not a bad idea. Because this freezing to death thing kind of sucks. And then here comes Alec popping into the tent. He's got his, he's like, I'm sorry to come unannounced, but I bear gifts, as is traditional for visiting someone's home unannounced. Yes. And here's a bunch of medallions that we got. And he says, I've made friends with some of the devils. And motions to Steris, who's just kind of standing there.
Hello, I'm a devil.
With
That's
a
what
bunch
I
of
wanted.
rifles.
That's what I wanted Steris to say, but she didn't understand what they were saying.
Right, yeah.
Which makes the scene even funnier. They're having this good old chat, and she's just like rumbling about something. Guns.
Yeah, because she says something and puts the guns on the floor, and he's like, I think she wants us to start shooting the other ones. And the captain's like, yeah, okay, I'm in. And they're like, look, I don't know if we're going to win this, but this is better than where we were 5 seconds ago, so let's do this. And the captain says, almost I forgive you, Alec, for your terrible dancing. Which I don't remember. I don't know if you guys remember his story about the bad dancing. But apparently on an airship, they hang you out the ship by your heels or something if you mess up the dance steps.
Oh, that's right.
So he acted like this story was about someone else. Apparently it was about him. Then we cut back to Wax, who's just, as we find out from Airsi later, he doesn't like find a way out. He just like goes straight through the rocks and bursts out somehow.
True Wax fashion.
Yeah. Like why take a roundabout way when you can just destroy things when it's convenient? That is very, very Wax.
It's a very loud, oh yeah!
Wax is completely red now. Let's see. Okay, so he sees the airship up there, and he hears gunfire. But he's like, I don't think they're shooting at me. Something else is going on down there. And he sees the airship, and he's tempted to just destroy the ship. He's like, I could rip it apart by the nails, basically drop everybody to the ground and kill them all. But that's not who I am. He was a lawman. He'd rather die than betray that. Well, die again. And so he sees Steris and Alec kind of leading the fight on the ground against the bad guys, and he helps-ish. Like he drops down, throws a bunch of soldiers around, and takes one of the aluminum pistols so that he can use it in his attack on the airship. So I feel like you could have helped your fiance out a little bit more when she's in the middle of a gunfight, but whatever. Priorities, I guess.
Oh, Wax.
So he says that this has given him not just allomancy, but ancient allomancy. Maybe even more, which I feel like, yes, it's even more, because even the strongest Elend had like original allomancer power from the source of allomancer powers, more or less, and he couldn't do what Wax can do here. Which does beg the question. It's like, how did the Lord Ruler or whoever create this? He smashes his way through the bridge, and Soot is just sitting there all by himself. Although he senses that there's people in the hallway outside. And his uncle's like, time for us to have our confrontation at long last. And Wax is like, not much of one. I could destroy you 100 different ways. And I love his response of like, yeah, I'm sure you could. Sat, I can only destroy you one way. And he's like, why do you think I've always beaten you? It's like, you haven't beaten me. You refuse to fight. That's a different thing. It's like, well, sometimes that's the only way to win. And according to his uncle, he's like, I always win because I have creativity. Not just because of my preparation, though that is extensive. It's my creativity. And he's like, you're going to bludgeon me with a painting? Soot has armed the giant bomb. And he's like, look, I could blow up everybody on this mountainside. And Wax is like, I'd survive. He's like, yeah, what about your friends down there? Like, this bomb is supposed to be big enough to take out a city. And in the middle of Soot's, like, villain monologue, Wax taps the zinc to increase the speed of his thought so he can think through, like, a bunch of different scenarios. This is like Doctor Strange and the Time Stone.
I had the same impression. I thought it was really well written. Really cool.
Which this scene is a really good, like, whenever people are like, which powers would you pick? I've always been like, mental speed might be real cool. And this kind of highlights that.
Sure. It's very Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
/ Doctor Strange. Wait, those guys were the same, but they didn't use that same power in the same way.
Well, I guess if like in the Sherlock Holmes movies, like Robert Downey Jr. does.
Right, but
have
that's
this whole
not
thing, but
Benedict
that's a different.
Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
It's a
That's a different person in that same movie, in that
Yeah.
same scene where he does the time stone thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh goodness. So I like Wax is like most criminals. If they're like, I'm gonna blow us all up, I wouldn't believe them because they want to survive. But the set has always been kind of fanatic. So before Suits, he runs through all these possibilities before like Suit has even finished the sentence, and finally, Wax is like, okay, well, what do you want? I'm not gonna let you go. What do you want? And like Suit says, I might be creative, but you are tenacious. You'd like chase me across the world, which he kind of has done already, to be fair. And so he says, drop the bands out the window. I'll order the bomb disarmed, and then we have a good old-fashioned duel. We face one another as men without unnatural advantages, which is total bullshit because he's got spikes and shit. So
Yeah, the whole setup's ridiculous because Wax knows he has spikes. Wax can sense the coin in his mouth. It's like, dude, you have so many advantages. It's like you're completely just lying.
it's it's a
I think
villain
that's
staple.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. He's like, oh, let's just fight on equal terms while secretly making them as unequal as possible.
It's what's the movie that I'm thinking of? It's Rush Hour. It's like, put down the gun, fight like a man.
Wipe yourself off, man. You did.
I was just think of Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like, oh, in a fair fight, I'd kill you. Well, there's not much incentive for me to fight fair then, is there?
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. But I do like that he's like, well, Wax is like, I mean, why would I trust you to do what you say? And Suit's like, I mean, you don't have to. Give me your word that you'll do it. And Wax does. And he's like, okay, disarm the device. And I love that somebody calls up from like the engine room where it's like, okay, yeah, the device is disarmed. And then you hear him be like, thank Trell for that. Like nobody wanted to blow up, but they were totally going to do it.
It's like
And
one of those,
so-
it's like, oh yeah, like, deactivate the bomb. Oh, thank God. They look at each other, it's like, he was just about to blow us all up. Guys, are we the baddies?
Let me ask you something. When you think about job security and like life security, like does it seem like we're in the right line of work to you? Or, well, I mean, we get as many women as we want and they pay us lots of money. Yeah, but is that enough? Like, we might die. He might kill us. Well, could be worse. How could it be worse? A woman could cut your penis off and throw it out the window of a moving car. There is always that.
It's real hard to tell what these like kind of ground level dudes in the set are thinking, if they're in this for the money or if they're just that fanatical that they're happy to blow themselves up to advance the cause. There's something I kind of skipped over earlier where it's like when Suit comes into the ship, like the technician walks up to him to tell him what's up, and it says the technician is bearing the red uniform of the set's hidden guard. And I was like, that's very dramatic sounding, and I don't know what to think of what is the hidden guard,
Yeah, it's just like the Red Guards for the Emperor in Star Wars.
right?
All hail Trell. All hail Trell.
Red does seem to be Trell's color, especially if this red haze is his doing.
Yeah. As the Suit has a whole monologue about how, secretly deep down Wax is a killer and he wants to he's always wanted to kill me. So this is your chance to do it without breaking the law, essentially, which I'm not sure what the laws are, if duels are within the legal code here, but whatever. We know that they've come up before, so.
Yeah, but that seems like it's a roughs thing. Like it seems like one of those like in the city they'd be like, oh, this is very uncivilized. How dare you, sir?
Well, earlier in this book, we found out that he broke some guy's nose when he's like the guy challenged him to a duel or something. And he's like, I saved him from me having to kill him in a duel by just breaking his nose with a headbutt. That's right, because that was Steris' things, like don't headbutt anybody at this party or whatever.
Okay. I don't remember that at all. That was forever ago.
Yeah, right. And so they're about to start their duel when we cut to Telson, who is also scrambling through the snow, and she's thinking, man, Suit, what a fucking idiot. I always knew that he was stupid, but flying off in that airship, that's the first place they're going to look. Which, yeah, okay, point, you do make yourself a big target in that airship, but I think that he had a decent approach.
It's very much oh yeah, you're painting a target on yourself by taking a mode of transportation that isn't walking through the snow.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's such an obvious thing. Yeah, because it means not dying.
Well, Well, mainly Suit is interested in, the technological possibilities here. But I agree that not dying from freezing to death in the mountains is probably a very useful secondary benefit.
Frostbite is not a joke, kids.
Nope. But she has her own plan. She's like heading towards the skimmer. No one is paying attention to the little ship while the big ship's flying. And she's figured out how to fly it. And she's like, man, today's been a disaster. Wax knows about the subterfuge. The set is exposed. Our plans are crumbling. So she's got a very negative outlook, whereas Suit was like, this is all an opportunity for us to get ahead. But then again, Suit attracted the attention of Wax with the Bands of Mourning, so maybe Telson was closer to the truth. But I do like the way, from her perspective, like, she doesn't know it's coming. She hears something bang, and then the snow all around her is suddenly red. And she's like, wait, what? And a voice says, you killed one of my friends today. I'm not going to let you take a second. And here's Wayne with a shotgun. And she says, you can't. Guns? And he's like, yeah, about that. Cocking the shotgun. This is a very action movie sort of moment as he lowers the barrel to her face and fires. I feel like that's the more like Western movie conclusion here than what Wax does, where he falls out of a flying ship. But whatever.
Yeah, very much so.
Then we get Marisai, who's just like trying to find a way out from the catacombs, basically. She finds like a little path. And she's like, Wax just ripped out straight through the stone. Half the chamber collapsed as a result, which, okay, she's real lucky she's not dead then. And she just feels real comfortable with what she did, handing off this power to someone else, and like who she is. And it's a very nice moment for Marisai, who has always been this person who was not comfortable with herself, and everyone has always told her she's not good enough. And
I think too, she can see that what she did, even though it's not for her long term, what she did, like she had to be the one to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, when we first met her and we found out she had allomantic powers, she's embarrassed of her power. She's always wanted something better, something more useful. And now it's just like she's comfortable. She had more. She had as much more as you could probably get. And she realized that that's not who she wants to be. So I really like this for Marisai. This feels like a really nice moment for her character.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then she finds Meilon still just hanging out, lobbing around. She's like, oh, that sucks. I can't really do anything for her right now. And then she sees Wayne. She hears the gunshot, and Wayne just walks out of the snow holding 3 spikes in his hand. So Telson had all 3, the one that they're looking for Indiana Jones Condra, and the 2 that belong to Meilon.
And I guess if she didn't die, she was incapacitated long enough for Wayne to actually get the spikes.
So it's a win either way.
Yeah.
And then we get Suit and Wax about to have their duel, and Wax knows, that Suit's got his whole thing. And so he's not even really trying to get off the first shot and win this duel. Because, I mean, as somebody mentions, he knows Suit can heal. It's what's the good gonna be of shooting him? Like, he can heal, you can't. We know who's gonna win this gunfight. So what he does is he just runs at him. He takes the hit and grabs him. And Suit's like, ha! I've made myself a leecher, so now you have no allomancy. You're dead.
Mustache twirl.
Yeah.
And
and Wax is like, you never learned to mind your surroundings. Wait, no, that's a different.
Yeah, it's a different Batman film.
He's like, I'm not surprised that you forgot. You've always hated
Wrong
it.
Bat villain.
I'm a terraceman, uncle. And he uses his ferrochemy, which apparently leeching does not affect ferrochemy in any way, which I guess makes sense. Leeching takes away your metals that you're burning. You don't need to burn metals here, so.
Sure.
And he basically just
also
rips...
really cool use of his ferrochemy.
Oh yeah. I mean, these ships are so based on this becoming lighter thing that he just basically rips it apart by becoming way, way heavier, and it's great.
Seems like a design flaw.
Well, I mean, you probably assume that people flying on the ship want the ship to stay in the air as a rule.
Mostly.
But I agree that it's Suit is being very mustache twirly here, where once he figures out what's going on, he's like, you fool! Which is just, that's such a villain thing to say. But I love that they rip through the bottom of the ship, and he basically rides his uncle down. Like, he gets above him and is just falling on top of him. And as he screams, Wax can push the coin out of his mouth and into the ground so that they can slow them down. Or that he can allow Suit to slow them down, I guess. He lets Suit do the pushing, and he decreases his weight, because he doesn't have any more Alamancy, because Suit has leeched him. So, and he has his very dramatic. He's like, a lawman is the guy that takes the bullets, nobody else has to. And then he decks him and knocks him out. Which I feel it's kind of weird that you can't heal from that. You can heal from getting shot, but not from knocked out. But maybe, I guess you can't actively try to heal when you're unconscious.
I don't know. Miles was unconsciously healing way back when, wasn't he?
That's true. But I think that we found out that was because he was like constantly healing at all times, basically. So he just like had it running.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We get the Meilon point of view where she's like in terror. She wants food. She wants a place to hide. She's cold, but doesn't understand what cold is and can't taste dirt, can only taste stone. And she's like, deep down, she knows there's something really, really wrong, but she doesn't know what. And then the things start dropping on her, and it's her spikes. She doesn't realize that at first, but she comes back to herself pretty quickly. And she's lost some of her memories. She doesn't remember everything that happened in this room, but she remembers most of it. It's interesting. It's like, as she formed her eyes first, but she knew what she would see because she already tasted him on the air and knew his flavor. It's a little bit weird, but at the same time, they've been very intimate, so I believe it. And Wayne says, "Welcome back. I think we won." And that's the end of our chapters. So I feel like between this section and the last section we read, we've run through a real quick Sanderlanche in this book. And we still have a couple chapters left, so...
I'm going to say we have, but I feel like it's been an immensely satisfying one. Like the last book, I'm just like, it just seemed kind of I don't want to say a slog, but it just I didn't feel comfortable with it by the end of the book, whereas this one, I'm just like, oh yeah, like I know there's still 2 chapters and epilogue coming, so there's still shit to do, but it feels neater, I guess.
Yeah, I just reiterate that I feel like all the beats in this were earned. I feel like the story is pretty tight from top to bottom. There are a few red herring things that aren't wrapped up, at least not yet, that we can just chalk up to, I guess, the set trying to distract Wax. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty tight story.
Yeah, we still don't... Sorry, I'm trying to think of bits of story. Like we have the 8-manton symbol, which I think Wax at least has decided was bullshit, and he's not actually there. That was just a distraction.
Yeah, same thing with the bandits, because I think the bandits are specifically said to be a distraction.
Yeah, we had the bandits on the train robbery, which they mention is a distraction, but at the same time, there's an indication that they were looking for something on that train.
Right. Yeah, I think they're looking for the cube. I think that's
I was going to say,
it ends up being.
There's at least an implication that it was the cube, because they're like, and then he immediately lost it or something like that. But that opens the question of like, but the cubes came from the airship, right? So how is it on the train? Like, what's going on there? So yeah, there's definitely some things that are still not completely cleared up.
We figured out
surprising. Like 8-manton will be Trell's human form.
Yeah, I guess the coin medallion thing that Hoyd gives Wax is like one of the medallions for these peoples.
It's definitely made of like multiple metals, like these are.
Yeah, so that would be my guess.
So then, what does that one do?
Well, didn't they use it? Didn't they?
No, I don't think they've used that one.
Oh, okay. I thought they did.
Well, and the thing is, it is made of the different metals, but it also has like a picture of somebody with a spike through one eye, and I don't think any of the other medallions are mentioned as having like that kind of picture.
That's true. We theorized that it was Marsh because he's the only person we've known with one spike in an eye.
Yeah, there's still some stuff left, but once again, there are still 2 chapters in epilogue, so who knows what will get resolved. Let's move into predicaments, I think.
So how do I think this book's going to end? I think Edwin and maybe even Telson are going to end up in jail, because I don't know that Telson's dead. But even if she is dead, Edwin can still go to jail. I feel like that's not going to hold either of them. If they do go to jail, I feel like at some point they're going to escape. Or maybe the set will have them murdered to keep them from talking about their plans, which, I don't think either of these people would do that, but maybe Edwin would to cut a deal. But Telson doesn't strike me as the type of person who would talk to get out of something, but maybe I'm wrong about that. So I would imagine that somebody is going to get this airship device information. Somebody whose hands it will be wrong to have it. So some bad guy is, because potentially the airship kept flying. I don't know if it was destroyed enough that it would fell out of the sky, but
Yeah.
potentially it kept flying and those other people in the set got away. So they could get that airship technology based on them getting away. So there's that possibility for sure. And I think that I've been predicting this for a little while. I think last book there's going to be some kind of major conflict in Ellendale and where people are going to turn on Wax. I feel like that's still a major possibility. There's definitely been talk of war throughout this whole book, not the whole book, but a lot of the books. So I think there's a very strong possibility that will happen. And so maybe that's what we'll see this next book that hasn't even come out yet. So we don't really know what's going to be in it. So
Right. Yeah, you guys are almost completely caught up on Mistborn here. So
yeah.
I'm almost in as much dark as you guys are on where this could be going at this point.
Yeah. I also think in the epilogue that that Wax and Steris will get married. Either that or they'll put off the wedding until maybe the next book.
Well, it would be nice if they got married and Wayne didn't ruin it this time, I guess.
Sure. Well, Wayne's got his own girl now and he's got a steady hand, and so he's a different guy.
So you think that Suit would talk to cut a deal?
It seems like the kind of thing he'd do, but maybe he'd be too scared of the set to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I also think like it'll end with the wedding. I do think that like Wayne's issues with Steris haven't really been resolved yet, so maybe I don't know. It'd be nice if maybe he did try and pull something, but Marisai's on like oh no, scratch that. Maylan's the one who convinces him not to. That might be nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that'll be the epilogue. The only real story beat I sort of predicted coming out of this was they've got the spike back for Grave Robber Kandra, whatever his name was.
Ray Lure.
Yeah, and I feel like that. Yeah, he's like they're gonna put the spike back in him, and he's gonna have other knowledge of something that we haven't really seen coming at all. Like he's gonna have knowledge of something trail related, something he gained while being attacked by the set, and so there are things like, oh, we'll get his spike back and he'll be really happy and really thrilled, and then he'll put it back in. He will just start screaming and just go, "Don't you guys fucking get it? He's coming!" And yeah, it's gonna be like, oh shit, what's happening?
Yeah, we definitely know from the Harmony bit that there's something coming, something trying to get in.
Yeah, and if they've been building up Trell now for 3 books. And if like the next book is the last one of this series, I'm like, well, that's clearly where this has got to go. So, yeah, Ray Lure is going to have some kind of knowledge of that. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing how that plays out. But aside from that, I really don't see what else is going to go down. I'm not sure. Like, it seems like I'm just like, yeah, there's 2 chapters left. What are they going to do? A lot of it does seem to be wrapped up by now, which is unusual for this point of the game, I guess.
Yeah, right. It's kind of nice to feel like we've gotten a nice complete story at this point instead of being like, how is this going to be done by the end of the book?
Yeah, it's like, I'm sure there's got to be some other twist in the tail. Who knows what? Maybe Suit has one last exit strategy, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I don't have a huge amount more, I think, than what's already been said. We're kind of at that sort of wrapping up point of the book now. I reckon Suit's still got something up his sleeve. We know he's not dead, but he is a bit of a wild card. Not to play into that naming convention too much.
I hadn't thought of that. That's
but Tish.
I also think, I don't actually think he would be willing to trade information for a deal. I see it far more likely that he'd be willing to probably die to protect the secrets. Like he said he'd never die, but I can't imagine him just turning on the set. Like I feel like the consequences if he was still alive and turned on the set would be worse. But it really depends on Telson if she's dead or not. I think I thought she was just dead, but I think maybe she's not now. Like she was down long enough for Wayne to grab the spikes and maybe think she's dead. But I think it would be cooler if she was able to come back in some form a bit later, finish off their villainous ways. And I very much hope that Wax and Steris manage to make it down the aisle, particularly after Wax's conversation with Harmony. I feel like it's not necessarily, it doesn't make it better, but it is a little bit of closure for him that, it would have been worse. And I understand why it had to be that way, as much as it's awful and I wish it was different. Like, I get it. So I'm hoping that he's able, maybe he's in a better mindset to be getting remarried now. So I hope that's the thing that's going to happen. And yeah, we're obviously a bit off making predictions for the next book, but Trell has to come into it in the next one for sure. And we've got to figure out what Harmony's issue is somewhere. It's got to be related to Trell.
You would think, right? After everything we've heard about Trell,
Saying like Harmony's been a bit distracted, and we just have no answers on why or what that is. And maybe it's got to answer, where did the souls go question. Maybe that's kind of where we're looking in the next book.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do like the idea that after this conversation, maybe he'll be in a better headspace to get married than he was before, because he was kind of freaking out at that wedding at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
But I don't know, how do you think it's going to affect his relationship with Harmony? Like, is he going to be able to now go back to not hating God, or is there still going to be some strange stuff there?
I feel like he's not going to be, oh, good, my old buddy Harmony now. I think, though, there's a little bit more understanding of why Harmony runs the show the way he does. Especially his speech about, like, where does it stop? Do I stop people from getting injured? Do I stop someone from burning their own house down? Where does it end? Everyone's always going to want more. I have to make those calls and they suck, but, we have to learn and grow, and nothing will happen if I hand everything to you. So I'm hoping that Wax kind of can understand that a bit more, and just have a little bit more peace, I think, is where he needs to be. It doesn't have to agree with everything that Harmony does, but I feel like rather than rejecting Harmony outright now, he can at least work with him.
That would be an improvement, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I'm willing to work with Harmony again. And Harmony's like, good, because I've got someone who has requested your help. And Marsh just walks in and is like, yep, I'm Batman. I need a Robin.
Yeah, I don't know. We got the impression from Marsh that he and Harmony are not necessarily always on the same page. So who knows?
Yeah, but like if Says just rocks up at Marsh's house and goes, there's an evil god knocking at the door. Marsh is like, I'll get my kit.
Yeah, probably he'd be on board with helping. One would think. Yeah, one would hope.
Evil god, eh? Call those possum hunters.
We're gonna need some outside help. Says like, you don't mean? Oh no. Hey there.
Yeah. Harmony's like, Marsh, you're gonna have to contact them. He's like, are you sure? Yes, I'm afraid so.
Activate the possum signal.
Possum signal.
Okay. We got this.
What do we got?
We got some predicaments. That was good. And we have to move into a couple of emails that I'm going to read. Which we got another one that's for the end of the book. So we're gonna have several emails next time of people who send in stuff for the end of the book. In the meantime,
How many's a couple?
I think 3 now that I've been saving 2 for a long time, and then this week we had another one. So yeah, I think there's 3 that we're gonna have next week.
Okay.
Assuming nothing more comes in. So this first one is from Nathan, and Nathan says, "Hi Data and the rest of the crew. If you decide to read this on the podcast, I've been reading through the Cosmere for the first time alongside the podcast for a couple months now. I knew some basic stuff about the universe before starting, so I had at least a vague understanding of some things like shards and Hoid going into it. I'm currently on episode 2 of Secret History and had to replay the section where Jamie said that the Drifter was another Hoid about 6 times. The fact that you were able to hold it together and not give any kind of reaction is a level of non-spoiler commitment I don't think I could ever hope to achieve. I'm also genuinely starting to become convinced that Jamie has read these books before. Keep up the great work, Nathan."
That's funny. I didn't remember her saying that at all.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe once. I don't remember saying it 6 times.
Right. That was like it might have been. I think we joked about there being like a school of Hoids out there where they were teaching.
Oh, that's right.
And,
sure,
yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Also,
Sexy
in terms
Drifter.
of having read the books, I can assure you I have not, and I think as you find post Secret History, my predictions get worse.
Really, it's that she's given everyone else a chance to get some good predictions in there.
That's right. She's helping us out.
just shutting up over here.
Yeah. That's a T-shirt idea. The sexy drifter.
That was one of my.
That was an idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's an idea on the list. It's just.
I know. I'm just reiterating. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Joe's supposed to be getting us some shirts for the con for Dragonsteel, which for people listening to this should be next week for you guys.
Oh wow, yeah, it's coming up. I keep forgetting.
So get excited if you're going to be at Dragonsteel next week. Then come look for us. Did we decide for sure what's going to be on the shirts? Because this is our last chance to tell them, basically.
Yeah. Well, look, I talked to my sister-in-law, but it's still kind of up in the air. So if we are wearing shirts.
Well, we're going to be wearing shirts of some kind.
Well, yeah, but if we're wearing shirts that are specifically based
shirtless.
on. Yeah, exactly. If we're wearing shirts specifically based on the show, then they're going to be black shirts that say "Ask me about my volcano theory." So come check us out if you can. If we are indeed wearing those shirts. If not, I'll wear a name tag that says Joe from the Sanderlanche or something. We'll figure it out.
So yeah, if you guys spot somebody wearing "Ask me about my volcano theory" shirts, come up. Ask about
these shirts will be black.
Theory.
So if you see somebody who like quickly after this podcast, I shouldn't have said they were black because now somebody's going to go out and they're going to make these shirts before we have a chance. Surely a week's not enough time for them to get that together, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Yes, we are going to have promotional items for the show. So that's one of the reasons I like the Ask Me About My Volcano Theory thing, because even if someone has no idea what the show is, they're like, hey, let me ask you about your volcano theory. And then we'd be like, well, listen to the Sanderlanche podcast. Here is a promotional item that we are handing out. So Joe will have one item and I will have one item, and we'll be handing until they run out.
Yes. And find us both because we'll have different items. So, check out what we got.
I'm just picturing like approaching some random person on the street who has a shirt that says "Ask me about my volcano theory," and everyone's like, "Oh, are you from the Sanderlanche?" He's like, "No, I'm a geologist. What are you talking about?"
Sander what?
Well, if they're wearing a shirt that says that, then they're trying to provoke your conversation anyway. So you got to start it.
They still want to talk to you. It's fine.
Yeah. He's still just like, oh yeah, no, like volcanoes are gonna like blanket the planet someday. Like, you know, we need to get on this. And everyone's like, man, I was trying to talk to you about Hoyd, but okay.
Yeah.
So yes, we're gonna be there. Hopefully, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited. About this big.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
Never been to Utah either, so that'll be interesting.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I was at Disney World this past weekend. One of the days, I think at Epcot or something, I wore my Hoyd shirt that just says Hoyd in giant letters, and nobody noticed it that time. But I was at Animal Kingdom one time, not this week, but a previous year, and the guy in front of me had like a Stormlight Archive shirt, and struck up a conversation with him based on that. But so they're out there. There's fans everywhere of Brandon's books. You got to find them.
Well, you hope so. Otherwise, who the hell's listening to us?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
The other email I want to do this week is called Wayne Defense, and it's from the Magic Pencil Animations. It says, "Hey Sanderlanche crew, just felt I should defend Wayne a little. One aspect of him in particular, actually, his trading. Wayne steals stuff not because he wants to be funny or quirky, but because he has a compulsion to do so and cannot fully control himself. He has kleptomania. Getting mad at him is similar to getting mad at Steris for being socially awkward. Not exactly the same, since Steris' social awkwardness doesn't hurt others and doesn't cause problems, but it's in a similar vein, in my opinion. Also, stealing from Wax is him doing his best to limit the damage that his kleptomania causes. By stealing from someone who is A, rich enough to afford it, B, won't get mad at or try to arrest him, and C, might not even notice, since he's so uninterested in the affairs of his house. Now, Wayne does have other issues that are purely him. Harassing Renette comes to mind, but his kleptomania is something that he struggles with, not something he does just for fun." That's that email.
Look, I guess I see your point. I think they've probably got valid reasoning in there, but because the books present it largely as comedically, it's sort of hard to take in the manner you've suggested. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of a grey area, but I do see your point there. So well made.
I feel like calling it something he struggles with doesn't ring true because he never seems to try to resist. He always does it and then acts like, well, why are you upset about that? Like, I traded you something perfectly good for this. And when something is that socially unacceptable and frankly illegal in a lot of situations, I feel like you can't just be like, well, you know, it's part of who I am. Like it's a thing that I have. I mean, you go to jail in that instance, or to a psychiatric hospital for the criminally
Sure.
insane or whatever. So
Yeah, your personality is not an excuse for your behavior. That's something that some people find it very hard to learn, but your personality is not an excuse for your behavior.
I do get the perspective that he can't help it, and it does in a lot of ways seem like something that I don't know that I would say he can't control it, because we never see him try or even think about controlling it. We never see him acknowledge that it's wrong in any way.
Right.
It's always why can't you understand that, like, I haven't, like, your net gain, like, your net about the same. You had an object and now you have this object, failing to take into account any importance or sentimental value of the item. Like, trading a rat's tail is not acceptable. But he doesn't seem to think at all like, yeah, I know this is wrong, but I can't help myself. For him, he's like, well, what's your issue? Even when people voice they have an issue with it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, he does use it to take, for the most part, he seems to use it to take more wealthy people down a peg and to help poorer people up by, he gives, like, a silver spoon to some street urchins to go buy a bunch of buns or whatever, and he trades he trades Wax most of a rat for his hat, because Wax can afford to lose the hat, as this guy or this person was pointing out. So, I mean, if he's going to do it, he could be worse about it for sure, but I don't know that that's a real good excuse.
Oh yeah, the whole not as big of a jerk as you could be.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I don't think Wayne is a bad person. Like, deep down, I think he has good intentions, but he just when you think it's like, oh, okay, we actually don't mind Wayne, here we go. He does something else that you're just like, why are you like this? It's not just the stealing things and swapping things. Like, the Renette situation was pretty bad, but like what he does to Wax, I guess, stealing, but then like ruining his wedding because he doesn't like Steris, and it's like, dude, it's not okay. That's not how friends behave. It's not how people should behave in general, but you particularly don't do things like that to your friends.
Yeah, agreed. So Wayne is a mixed bag, and I think that we've all acknowledged that. Like, he's fun and he's funny and he's wacky and fun to read about, even when he's being horrible. I think, well, most of the time when he's mean to Steris, we're like, I don't even want to read that, dude. That's be nice. Yeah. We love Steris, but yeah, he's a mixed bag. That's how I'm gonna put it.
Mixed bag of nuts.
Yeah, that's exactly. Okay.
I see two almonds touching.
I do not like almonds. I will say that.
That's if I'm gonna have mixed nuts, I feel like they always end up being like all almonds and peanuts, and that's
I like peanuts. I like cashews. I'm not an almond guy. Leave little bits in my mouth. I'm not into it.
I like peanuts okay, but I don't like them to be half of like the mixed nuts. I don't need that to be 50% of what I'm paying.
That's fair.
Anyway, random sidebar about mixed nuts. Usually I'll just buy cashews. Just eat.
Write in about your preference on mixed nuts.
We have 2 new patrons for Joe to.
Word.
Yeah. Assign some ferrochemical abilities to.
Okay. Let's
hear
it. Oh yeah, I got it.
Okay. So the first one is Katie, who pledged at the misting level.
Katie, you are a wind whisperer. You store senses.
That's useful.
That's tin metal.
Yeah. What anniversary is tin?
I don't know, actually. It's all screwed up because they got like the traditional and the modern list. So like everything's all.
Yeah. Traditionally, tin or aluminum is 10th anniversary, apparently.
Oh, nice.
Interesting. Anyway, that's completely irrelevant. So thank you, Katie. And our other one is John, who pledged at the ska level.
John, you, sir, since we were talking about mental speed earlier, you're a sparker. You store that mental speed.
That's one of my favorites. Well done. So, speaking of, I haven't had any more time since I was gone for a week to work on editing the Possum Hunters, but I did edit before I left a bunch of stuff. I started. Okay, so step back one step. I finished as of this recording. It was 5 days ago, so on the 25th of October, the last section of Bastille versus the Evil Librarians, my read through and reaction to that went up on for patrons on our Patreon. And once I was done with that, I started in on the preview chapters that have been going up for the Lost Metal So I have, as of this recording, I have read the first 11 chapters of The Lost Metal and recorded reaction. Let's see, that's 4 episodes, I guess, that I have recorded so far, and I've uploaded them to come up to post on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the first one went up on this last Thursday, the 27th. So the first chapter, or the prologue and chapters 1 and 2 of The Lost Metal are also up on the Patreon. And so I hope that if you guys, I hope you guys will enjoy that. If you've been holding out to hear about The Lost Metal, this is the time to join up. And as he's releasing these chapters, I held myself off from starting to read them because I knew that I wouldn't want to stop once I started. So it wasn't until the last episode of Bastille versus the Evil Librarians was about to come out on our Patreon that I was like, well, I guess I better start this. And then I read through in like a couple of hours the first 11 chapters that they post a certain number of chapters each week on tor.com to preview. And so I recorded all those. Since then, because I was gone for a week, one more chapter or set of chapters 12 and 13 have gone up, and I may read and record my reaction to that as soon as we're done here. So
Is that like half the book?
It seems like that, right? If you're going by this, that would, like, there's 31 chapters in this book, so that's like a third of the book that's up at this point for free.
Yeah, but how much gets released before the actual book comes out?
Well, they've been doing different numbers of chapters. Some weeks it's 1. I think there was 1 week where it was 3. So 2 seems to be the most common. So if they continue to release them on Mondays up through the new book, then we'll get 2, 4, maybe 6 more chapters. I don't know if they'll release it the week the new book comes out. They might hold off on that one. So yeah, that'll be, if we got 4 more chapters, that would be 17. If we got 6 more, it'll be 19. So yeah, that seems like maybe more than half the book, depending on how long the book ends up being. Brandon's nice about wetting everyone's whistle, releasing stuff. It's much easier with Stormlight chapters, though, since those books are so huge. When that new one comes out, he can release like a whole section, and it's still just like a fifth of the book or something. So yeah, I'm reading those, reacting to those, and that will put me a little bit ahead of the game when the book actually comes out, and I can start or rather I can finish reading that, and it'll help maybe deciding where we go next in this show, which is what we come to now. Is that for next week we are reading chapter 30, 31, and the epilogue. So finishing this book for next week's episode should be very exciting, and that this episode should come out on the 7th. Well, for us, 8th for Australians. And then that one will come out the 14th, and then the new book releases the 15th. So that's how close we will be wrapping up our coverage of this to when the new book comes
Oh, wow.
out. Yep.
Nailed it.
Weirdly appropriate, but it does mean that but by the time we've finished recording this book, I won't know whether we're going to go straight into the next book. And even if we were going to go straight into the next book, I wouldn't be able to get the book to Dak and Jamie because it won't be out by the time we need to record that episode. So we will have to do something between the end of this book and potentially starting that one, if that is the one that we're going to start. So I may pull out a short story. I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. I have not figured it out yet. So as of right now, I don't know where we're going after next week. Hopefully by next week I will.
We could look at the chapters that are already released. We could just start.
Yep. I had considered that, but then if something later in the book means that we shouldn't do that book next, then that would be horrible for us to like read the first two chapters and then be like
Stormlight spoiler or something.
Not giving you the rest. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I also don't necessarily want to move into the next book on our list and then be in another book. Like we'll finish 3/4 of this Mistborn series, and then if it turns out that the next book is a perfectly fine book with nothing weird spoiled for us to go into next, then we'll have taken like a huge side quest before coming back and finishing this, which also feels kind of awkward. Like I can go ahead and reveal, because I don't think at this point it'll come as a surprise to anyone, assuming that we don't have White Sand in time, which if we end up reading The Lost Metal next, then we may get White Sand in time to read it first, because I wanted us to have read White Sand by now. But the new release date for that is from that Indiegogo campaign is like December. So who knows when we'll actually get those.
How many times has that been postponed now?
Yeah, I know. It's been a bunch. And they do something that I always hate in these campaigns where it's like they just let the deadline they previously set go by because they don't want to admit that they're not going to make it, even though they've known forever that they're not going to make it. And they're like, oh, okay, by the way, here's the next deadline.
Yeah.
Which, if it was Brandon's company running the Kickstarter, like they have done a bunch of them and they always do an amazing job. This is like the comic book publisher and they're doing a really crappy job of communicating, and I really hate them. But anyway.
Yeah. Time for a digression real quick.
Okay.
I want to talk about, we're not sponsored by Loot Crate, and I don't care if we ever get sponsored by them because they're terrible. I ordered a March Loot Crate and I still haven't received it.
Dude, I was a subscriber to their Firefly Loot Crate when they had those, and it was like supposed to be a monthly Loot Crate, and at one point, like seriously, 6 months went by or more between.
What is it?
crates.
April, May, June, July, August, September, October. We're in October, and it was supposed to be and it was the March crate, so like that's how long it's been.
And they kept charging people monthly for the crates that were supposed to be coming out that month, even though nothing was coming out, and it was ridiculous. So
Did you get that money back?
I think eventually all the crates came out, and like eventually they're like, okay, this is the last one, and so they stopped charging more, and it was just took like a year and a half to get all of the crates you were supposed to get, if I'm remembering right.
Ugh.
Yeah, very similar thing. I ordered like a special edition crate that they're supposed to come out with 5 of, and it was supposed to come out in May, and it still hasn't come out either. The first one.
That said, there was some cool stuff in there, and what I heard with the Firefly one in particular is that basically Loot Crate, they were running out of money. They stopped paying their suppliers of stuff, and so they didn't have any stuff to put in these crates. So
yeah, well, I've heard they've had like bankruptcy issues and stuff too. So
but yeah, so yeah, that kind of sucks. But the stuff that was in the crates was usually pretty cool when you actually got them. And I was a subscription to like their I had a subscription to like their sock thing for a long time. I got a bunch of cool pairs of socks through the.
Oh yeah, I think you gave me a Rick and Morty pair of socks or something.
Yeah, that sounds like a thing I would have done.
Anywho, sorry.
But yeah, so assuming that we do not move on to White Sand next, which is what I hope that we'll be able to get to White Sand, the next book we are going to read will be Warbreaker, which is an interesting book, partially because Brandon actually wrote it kind of publicly. Like he would write the book and post it on his website, and then people would give feedback or whatever. And he did writing and editing it live almost by posting stuff on his website periodically. And so the book is available for free in its entirety on his website, which is when a bunch of times when people are like, hey, like I'm interested in maybe reading something of his, I'm like, well, just go download the free one on his website. It's a great novel. But that one I have scheduled out to take 17 weeks. And so that's basically the thing. Like, I don't want to get to the end of this book and be like, okay, we're starting Warbreaker, and then we are doing that for 17 weeks before realizing, and like in like 1 or 2 weeks in, I would realize, oh, hey, we could have finished Mistborn next. Like there was no reason not to. And so we would have taken a 17-week diversion to then just go back and finish Mistborn after we've barreled through the first 3. So that seems like a bad approach to me. And so that's why I'm like, I'm not eager to just jump straight into that. So we'll see. I'm going to try to make a plan, and we may end up just going for another kind of non-Cosmere story, get something fun and different out of the way just to have that week of buffer. We'll see.
I mean, yeah, you could do like Joe reading the ones we read.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last episode, and it's definitely a possibility that we could do. I mean, he said that he listened to one of the episodes that we recorded, so he couldn't react.
I listened to the first one, so the sci-fi one I wouldn't be able to have a good fresh reaction to, but
so yeah, I'll figure it out before we record the next episode for sure what we want to do, and let everybody know on that one. But for next week, we're finishing out the Bands of Mourning. I almost said the Lost Metal. The Bands of Mourning with chapters 30, 31, and epilogue. Gosh, I swear I can talk.
Yeah, that's the longest running gag of this podcast. Not possum hunters, not volcanoes. It's David just going, oh, I can't talk.
Yeah, I can't talk. I feel like that's every podcast I've ever listened to. They're always like, I'm tripping over my words today.
That's just my daily life, It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. You got cotton in your mouth. You should walk around. What was that old famous American politician that like walked around with marbles in his mouth so that he could do speeches better? He never won the presidency, but he ran several times.
I don't know that I've ever heard of this, and now I want to look this
It's
up.
like, is that actually a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the story of him having marbles in his mouth is as true as like George Washington chopping down a cherry tree. Like it's a fable, a story, a myth, but it may not be actually true.
Okay, so let's see. There's tales of Demosthenes from ancient Greece. Talking
Nah, that's too
pebbles in
old.
his mouth.
Nah, that's too old.
I mean, you guys had some wild presidents. I remember the one who, like, the guy got up to assassinate him and the guns misfired, so the president got down and started beating the shit out of him with his cane or something.
Yeah, that was Teddy Roosevelt, and he did actually get shot, just didn't kill him.
No, that wasn't Roosevelt. It was he had a really boring name.
Sure.
Jackson.
Oh, that sounds like him as well. No, but this guy I'm talking about never actually became president. He ran several times, but was never elected.
Strom Thurmond? That's the only thing that comes up when I'm.
Nah, not that one. This is a rabbit trail we'll never get down.
No. I love Andrew Jackson because they had to throw his parrot out of his funeral because he taught his parrot how to say so many curse words, and the parrot kept yelling them in the funeral, so they had to take it out.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Good times. Okay, so yes, 2 chapters in the epilogue for next time. Music by Miracle of Sound. If you want to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram, although I haven't posted an Instagram in a while. YouTube, although I haven't updated YouTube in a while. Patreon has been getting updated like gangbusters, though. So there's that. And all those sorts of places. Thanks, everybody, so much for listening. Thank you to our patrons, new and old, for wanting to support the show so much that you are donating your hard-earned dollars to our project. That is why Joe and I will be able to hand out cool little promotional items that I designed and had printed up because of the patron money. I don't think that we would have been able to do that otherwise. So there are results are already present from what you guys have done, and we appreciate it. So 3 chapters for next week. Wuzzing to the time of next. Colo?
Steam train running on a reckless rail, speeding right into the rising gale. Shuttle harder 'cause we're on your tail. London's dirty fire.